some really critical things are happening with the sustained attention on the devaluing of Black lives that this country was founded on and continues to implement. So the Black Lives Matter movement, I can't think of a more perfectly named movement. I mean, it very simply says Black Lives Matter, and the fact that people react to that with such vitriol indicates the very reason for why the movement is necessary. We performed at a concert where we all wore t-shirts that said Black Lives Matter. That was the single biggest set of dislikes we ever got. It was just photos. We didn't even write anything. The fact that we were wearing Black Lives Matter shirts set people off. And that's something where people need to really check themselves, and they have an opportunity to say, why do I react against that? You know, I see a lot of people saying, I'm going to defriend anyone on my Facebook if you are posting any of the following things. I don't think that's the way to go, because we're seeing now the danger of letting those folks incubate into a political campaign. It's a really scary and dangerous time, and there's a lot of violence brewing and happening. And I think it's pretty critical that we start to look and say, well, what the people I know who are adopting those positions, if I already have a relationship, how do I use that relationship to have conversations that might bring us back to some common ground? I think that's critical, because it's a dangerous force that's brewing, and to have somebody like Trump who is gathering and galvanizing those forces is really scary. And so that's something that we, Flobots, are trying to do through our music. We're releasing an album coming up that is going to, I mean, it's kind of like a therapy session, if that can, involve dope beats and a therapy session and rhymes. Like, that's what we're going to try to do, is put songs out there that will kind of reach into some of those hearts and say, let's talk about this.
Can you expand on that a little bit? You don't have to give your CD away, but...
Right. I mean, our album's called No Enemies. The project we've been doing here in Denver is called No Enemies. And the whole thinking around No Enemies is just that, we're here in a church, and one value that comes from my church that I think a lot of people, whatever your faith or non-faith, can agree with is the possibility of human redemption. That we know that, at least in some cases, there's stories of people who have been on one path and then, found some sort of redemption, gone and found transformation inside. We have to believe that our political opponents could experience a transformation, could experience redemption. And we have to place some hope in that and some investment in that. Practically, social movements should want to get bigger. Social movements should want to win, right? We should believe that we will win. And to win, we have to be inviting. And to be inviting, you need to say, like, you may be my opponent right now, but you're not my enemy. There's something in you. There's a path from there to here where we could be on the same page. And I've seen it in people who used to stand opposed to marriage equality and now embrace it. And I've seen it in people who used to be afraid of anybody who was undocumented and now are friends with those folks. And you see it with people who are afraid of Muslims and now are friends with Muslims. So I think we could see it. I think we can see it if we pave some of those paths. So our album aims to do some of that. If you look at the last 15 years, wherever there was a critical mass of people communicating about an issue, that's where change happened. So critical mass of people trying to stop the Iraq War from happening even before it started did not stop the war, but that movement then eventually is what led to electing the supposedly anti-war candidate at the time, 2008, Barack Obama. With LGBT equality or Keystone Pipeline or any of these issues, it's where there was a social movement behind it, people talking to their friends, talking to their cousins, their relatives, their coworkers, and making people aware about the issue, that then the popular opinion shifts, and the politicians will follow that. And so I think what we're seeing with income inequality, we are seeing some of the fruits of Occupy, where a lot of people will say, well, what did they really do? Well, Occupy changed the conversation. It made it about income inequality. It made it about things like Citizens United and things people weren't thinking about, corporate personhood. And suddenly you see then this lane opening up where a candidate in 2016 can talk about those things and have it really resonate. The people's movements created this opening for him to talk about what he talks about. I think one of the problems with the 2008 election is that we placed too much hope in a candidate. And I think it's very easy and tempting to become confused about how change happens and where the power lies, and to think if we elect somebody or if people's movements elect somebody who has the right set of political values, that will translate into policy. That's not how it works. The pressure has to be sustained regardless of whether it's President Trump, President Clinton, President Sanders, or President Cruz. What we need to do is the exact same thing, is maintain popular movements and to do it in a way that makes them bigger, that invites new people in. So we have to be having those hard conversations with our relatives, with people who disagree with us, because that's how you translate your ideas and values and principles into a political landscape. And once the political landscape, is in support of a certain set of values, then they translate into policy. So I think the election is a critical time because of the conversation that is out there in the ether. Everyone's talking about it, so you have a starting point with a lot of people, but ultimately we cannot lose sight of where the real power lies. As a band, we really try to, don't typically try to associate ourselves with candidates, because I think then people will think, oh, you see the candidate as where the power lies or where true change lies, and that's never true. We tried to really be clear about that with Obama in 2008. We played some events during the week when the DNC was in Denver, but we tried to always emphasize that it's to never put all your hope in a candidate, and I think it's certainly true with the Bernie Sanders campaign or any other candidate right now. What I like about Bernie Sanders is that I really believe he's saying that in a heartfelt way, that he's emphasizing that the movement that is attracted to him needs to continue forward in spite of whatever happens with electoral politics. And so yeah, I think the gravitation towards him represents a realignment of values, and I think every time there's a new batch of young voters, there's people who have grown up and digested and synthesized the world around them, synthesized the values around them, and now they're taking it to its logical conclusion. I think that's why it is exciting, is that people are saying, well, okay, enough with the idea of flirting with moderate changes in how things are structured. Why don't we actually envision something entirely different and entirely better? And even if we only can take incremental steps over the next 10 years towards it, let's at least hold that vision to its fullest, in its fullest iteration. Let's hold it up there and let's affirm it. And I think that's what his campaign has been important in doing, is it's now things that were completely off the table that you couldn't talk about, or the conventional wisdom was, well, we can't talk about that in any sort of serious political conversation. Now you can, and that's forever changed.